Today's video is sponsored by Nobility.co.uk, the leading company in selling legal titles in the United Kingdom. Get a 10% discount in any purchase by mentioning Death Row. Under Islamic law, when an unmarried male commits adultery with an unmarried female, they should receive 100 lashes and banishment for 1 year. And in case of married male committing adultery with a married female, they shall receive 100 lashes and be stoned to death. Zina or adultery is an Islamic legal term referring to unlawful sexual intercourse. According to traditional jurisprudence, zina can include adultery, fornication, prostitution, rape, sodomy, incest, and bestiality. Zina must be proved by testimony of 4 Muslim eyewitnesses to the actual act of penetration, or a confession repeated 4 times and not retracted later. The offenders must have acted of their own free will. On August 15, 2004, a 16-year-old girl was hanged in a public square in Nikka, Iran, a small industrial town by the Caspian Sea. Her death sentence was for crimes against chastity. Her name was Atefeh Sahaaleh. The only evidence against Atefeh was her own first confession. Atefeh Rajabi Sahaaleh was born on September 21, 1987, to an extremely poor family in the town of Nikka in Mazandaran province. Her family moved to the city of Mashhad after her birth. Her parents were divorced when she was still a toddler, with her father assuming guardianship of the children. Her mother remarried after the divorce, and died in an automobile accident when Atefeh Rajabi Sahaaleh was 5 years old. A short while later, Miss Sahaleh's brother drowned in a river. Her father was an itinerant vendor, and he would leave Atefeh Rajabi Sahaaleh and her sister with the neighbors since he had to travel to other towns. At one point he entrusted them to the Khorasan Province Welfare Organization for a while, until he ultimately took them to their grandparents' home in the town of Nikka and left for good. When Miss Sahaleh got a little older, she had to assume all the responsibilities at her grandfather's home, and take care of her 90-year-old grandfather and 70-year-old grandmother. The town of Nikka police officers arrested Atefeh Rajabi Sahaaleh in May 2004, at her grandfather's home. On April 25, 2003, Nikka law enforcement officials received unsigned reports against Atefeh Rajabi Sahaaleh, which were said to be from the people living in the neighborhood. A few days later, following her grandfather lodging a complaint against her, a judicial official issued a warrant for Miss Sahaleh's arrest. After her arrest, the agents proceeded to search the home and arrested another young girl who was in the house at the time, along with Atefeh Rajabi Sahaaleh. 2 men, who, according to Miss Sahaleh, had relations with her were arrested and questioned as well. Atefeh Rajabi Sahaaleh was arrested on the basis of unsigned local reports and her grandfather's complaint. Miss Sahaleh's father announced in an interview that during the 3 months Miss Sahaleh was in detention, he only visited with her for 10 minutes. Atefeh was convicted for crimes against chastity after being raped repeatedly by Ali Rabi, an 51-year-old ex-Revolutionary Guard turned taxi driver. Rabi was a married man with children at the time. Crimes against chastity are crimes involving sexual behavior. They include but are not limited to the following sexual acts, defined as such in the jurisdiction where they are prosecuted: adultery, child sexual abuse, prostitution, sodomy, rape and abduction. The town of Nikka General Court Branch 1 tried Miss Sahaleh. Since Atefeh Rajabi Sahaaleh could not afford to hire an attorney, she was assigned a court-appointed one. The charge against Miss Sahaleh was declared to be non-muhsana zina. However, A Nika judiciary official stated that the charges brought against Atefeh Rajabi Sahaaleh were spreading corruption on earth through establishing a corruption center, as well as unlawful, contrary to Sharia law sexual relations and indecent acts. During her trial sessions, Atefeh Rajabi Sahaaleh admitted and confessed to 4 counts of fornication and to undergoing the had punishment of flogging 3 times. Prior to her last arrest, Atefeh Rajabi Sahaaleh had been arrested and charged with corruption and fornication on 3 separate occasions and was convicted and sentenced each time to 100 lashes. These sentences had been carried out in the space of less than a year, on January 17, 2002, and March 16, 2002, when she was just 14 years old, and September 21, 2002. The Town of Nika General Court Branch 1 judge cited a complaint lodged by Atefeh Rajabi Sahaaleh's grandfather and unsigned reports from several neighborhood residents alleging that a young girl in this neighborhood has engaged in corruption and prostitution, and has immoral relations with a number of individuals as evidence for Atefeh Rajabi Sahaaleh's arrest and prosecution. Pursuant to the judge's order, an inquiry was made with Bishart Prison regarding Atefeh Rajabi Sahaaleh's record, which showed that she had a record of imprisonment in 2000 to 2001. The judiciary officials announced Ms. Sahaleh's age as 22. According to a report by Mazandnam website, the trial judge stated Atefeh Rajabi Sahaaleh's age as 22 in the court decision as well as in his correspondence with the Supreme Court. Furthermore, her date of birth is stated as 1982 in the burial permit. Atefeh Rajabi Sahaaleh's father and aunt stated, however, that she was only 16 years old at the time of the arrest and the implementation of her sentence, and according to her birth certificate, her academic records, and a copy of the death certificate issued by the State Personal Information Registration Organization, Ms. Sahaleh's date of birth was September 21, 1987. On May 23, 2004, the Town of Nika General Court, Branch 1, sentenced Ms. Sahaleh to death by hanging in public. On July 3, 2004, Supreme Court Branch 32 upheld the death sentence, and the head of the judiciary gave his consent to the implementation of said sentence. On August 15, 2004, Ms. Atefeh Sahaaleh was hanged in public in the Narenjbak 30-meter street neighborhood located in the town of Nika's Ra'ahan Avenue. Ms. Sahaleh's family members had not been informed of the time and place of the hanging. Ms. Sahaleh's father was not even able to see his daughter before the sentence was carried out. At the moment Atefeh Rajabi Sahaaleh was about to be hanged, she gave all her money and possessions to 2 girls without guardian and turned to the judge in her case and said, "If you forgive me, I will never look into the eyes of a stranger as long as I live." Then she turned to the crowd and said, "Forgive me." The judge in her case, Haji Reza, also acted as executioner and applied the noose himself. She was left hanging for 45 minutes. The judge later boasted that Ms. Sahaleh had been taught a lesson for her sharp tongue. Her father was not notified of her execution. The next day her body was stolen from her grave. It has never been recovered. After the execution of Atefeh, Iranian media reported that Judge Reza and several militia members, including Captain Zabahi and Captain Malay, were arrested by the Intelligence Ministry. The execution is considered controversial because as a signatory of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Iran promised not to execute anyone under the age of 18. Atefeh's father had passed her birth certificate to the civil authorities, lawyers involved, journalists and Judge Reza. Pursuant to continual complaints filed by Atefeh's family, and heavy international pressure about her execution and the way the judge mishandled the case, The Supreme Court of Iran issued an order to posthumously pardon Atefeh. After the execution of Atefeh, Iranian media reported that Judge Reza and several militia members including Captain Zabhi and Captain Malay were arrested by the intelligence ministry. Inside sources informed the media that in addition to the confession of his rape of Atefeh, Judge Reza, who served as judge, jury and executioner, also confessed to torturing her during interrogations to extract names of others she had relations with. He also confessed to covering up what he and the militia members had done to Atefeh, by speeding up the verdict of execution. Judge Reza insisted that the verdict and the execution were fully in compliance with the laws of Islam, permitted and sanctioned by the religious authorities. Thank you for watching Death Row.